Hello, co-pilots, passengers, shotgun callers, blunderbuss bellowers, and midnight riders. Welcome to another episode of Full Moon Empty Road. As always, I'm Jeremy, and I'll be your driver tonight. Hope everyone had a great week, and I hope you're ready for another road trip. This time, we're heading to one of the most haunted cities in America, Savannah, Georgia. This episode comes from a listener from the start and a good friend of mine named Bree. She actually just took a vacation to Savannah a couple weeks ago and asked if I would do an episode on some of the places in the city. And since this is a show for the fans, that's what we're going to do. So get in, buckle up, grab the rock salt, and let's ride. Our first stop today takes us to 20 East Broadway Street to a well-known historic inn and tavern known as the Pirate's House. Pirate's House was established in 1794 along with a portion of the building known as the Herb House added in 1874. The modern restaurant that people visit today was founded in 1953 by Herb Traub and Jim Casey. The Herb House was built on 10 acres of land on the east side of James Oglethorpe's original plan for Savannah. The plot of land was assigned to become a botanical garden that modeled the Chelsea Botanical Gardens in London. Sorry for that little delay there. I forgot to cut off notifications on my phone, and of course, right when I hit pause, I got a notification. As I said, the Herb House was built on a 10-acre plot of land on the east side of James Oglethorpe's original plan of Savannah. The land was dedicated to Oglethorpe's trustees, becoming known as the Trustees' Garden. Oglethorpe recruited botanists from around the world to acquire plants for the project, such as cotton, spice, indigos, and medicinal herbs. Medicinal herbs. I know what he was looking for. The garden was hoped to bring success in the wine and silk industries and was centered on growing mulberry trees. The soil and weather conditions of Georgia were not compatible with mulberry trees, and it was not successful with wine or silk. The garden was, however, able to distribute peach trees, for which Georgia is now renowned. The garden was so highly successful in growing cotton. The garden was also highly successful in growing cotton, which would later become a staple of Georgia's economy. The close proximity of the inn to the Savannah River drew many sailors and pirates alike looking for a place to drink and rest. The inn and tavern soon became a bustling establishment with all kinds of intriguing guests and suspicious behavior. Underground tunnels were even created to make these shady happenings more discreet. Kind of makes you wonder, anybody think Jack Sparrow's hanging out down there in those tunnels? Just a thought. The tunnels ran from the inn to the Savannah River. Rumor has it that the network of tunnels allowed pirates to kidnap inebriated men and take them secretly to their ships. Many would come to find out that they had unknowingly become indentured servants to their pirate kidnappers. Due to the history of the place, there are many reported sightings of sailors, pirates, and patrons from times past that the modern-day employees have reported seeing or feeling a presence of. One spirit of note is a pirate named Captain Flint. The tavern and Flint were made famous by the book Treasure Island, and the main character of the book says that they were with Flint when he passed. His last words calling for rum. I gotta make a second one here. I gotta make a second reference. I feel like that's how Jack Sparrow would go. Where's the rum? And then he croaks. Or as my buddy Gerald would say, where's the rum? However he says it. Captain Flint still haunts the tavern to this day. However, there is speculation that he was only a fictional character and that no real Captain Flint haunts the place. So, a little contradictory there, I know. But, it's one of those things where, this place and individual was made famous by a book called Treasure Island. But Treasure Island could have been, based on a real person. But who knows, Employees have stated that they felt like they're being watched when they turn, and when they turn around, they would see a ghostly seafarer from the past, I guess, just kind of staring at them. Other reports include footfalls of boots on the planks of the floor, and people have also said that they see apparitions in the window from outside the tavern. My parents actually ate at the Pirates Tavern when they went, or the Pirates House. Pirate House. They actually ate there when they went. That was I think I was talking to them earlier this week, and I think they said that was 12 years ago. But yeah, they actually ate there. Said it was a really cool little place to go. Let me know what you think of the place. Haunted tavern, or just a cool place to stop, grab a drink, grab a bite to eat. Who knows? But yeah, let me know what you think. Our second stop takes us to 429 Bull Street to the Mercer Williams house. An Italianate house completed in 1868. It occupies the southwestern Civic Block in Monterey Square. The house is currently owned by Dorothy Williams Kingery. It's either Kingery or Kingery. It's spelled King with E-R-Y at the end. I'm going to say Kingery because that's what it looks like to me. It's probably Kingery. Who knows? Williams' sister. And is open to the public for tours. Kingery's daughter and Williams' niece, Susan, manages the museum, which is based out of the carriage house at the rear of the property. And we'll go more into who Williams is. He was a very prominent person in dealing with the house. The house was designed by John S. Norris for General Hugh Mercer. I'm sorry. The house was designed by John S. Norris for General Hugh Mercer, great-grandfather of the singer-songwriter Johnny Mercer. Construction of the house began in 1860, and construction was interrupted by the American Civil War, but it finally got completed around 1868 by the new owner, John R. Wilder. Weird thing is about this place, one of the weird things that is it was built for General Mercer, but no one of the Mercer family ever lived in the house. So, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I would want to build a house and then go, I'm done. I'm going to go somewhere else. If I built that. And now, unless something happened, other than the Civil War, stopping the construction of the place for a time. But, I don't know if I could build a house, see it completed, and go, going somewhere else. Moving forward, in 1969, 11-year-old Tommy Downs fell from the roof of the house and was killed after being impaled on the iron fence on the West Gordon Street, which is on the south side of the house. It's believed he was hunting pigeons and slipped and fell off the roof. The tip of one of the two spiked prongs he landed on is still broken to this day. For a period in the 20th century, the building was used as the Savannah Shriners Alley Temple. It then laid vacant for a decade until 1969, when Jim Williams, one of Savannah's earliest and most dedicated private restorationists, bought the house for $55,000. Over 2 years, he fully restored this house, and I'm going to go into a story here shortly about part of those 2 years. Williams died in 1990, and Dorothy Kingery put the house up for sale later that decade with a price tag of just under $9 million. This was later reduced down to $7 million. And, I mention this a lot, but during my research, I'll see, pictures of facades of places that I'm covering. And, it is a big, beautiful house, but I do not know if this was a $9 million home. But it was. I will say that it was an absolutely beautiful place. In the 1960s, when Williams was restoring the house, he had hired a young man named Daniel Hansford. Hansford fell in love with Williams, and the two started a toxic relationship. 2-year toxic relationship that would end in tragedy. Here's the story accounted by NightlySpirits.com. On the morning of May 2nd, 1981, the couple's tensions came to a breaking point. Hansford lost his temper and broke a grandfather clock that Williams treasured. Hansford then confronted Williams in his study and pulled a gun on him. His lover Williams responded with angered shock and dismay. Hansford forcefully pulled the trigger, aiming the gun at Williams. Shockingly, the gun jammed, and Hansford found himself left vulnerable. His intentions to kill Williams were made clear, and he was too late to flee. Williams then grabbed a gun from his desk and shot Hansford in retaliation, killing him. Williams was arrested, but was able to promptly post bail and was released. He adamantly claimed that he shot his employee purely out of self-defense, and conveniently, the crime scene evidence reinforced this claim. However, prosecutors would later suggest that Williams manipulated the scene to lead investigators to this conclusion. In 1982, Williams stood trial for the shooting death of his boyfriend and employee. He was convicted and ordered to serve life in prison. He immediately appealed. He stated there were discrepancies in the police report. For this reason, a judge overturned the guilty verdict in 1983 and ordered that a new trial was to take place. At the second trial later that year, Williams complicated the story. At the encouragement of his lawyer, he revealed to the jury that he and Hansford were indeed in a romantic relationship. Despite this tactic, he was again found guilty of murder and sentenced to life behind bars. Williams again appealed the decision, this time questioning the validity of the sheriff's expert testimony. I want to break here for just a second. That whole me stumbling over validity, I just want you to know this is the second time I'm recording this episode in full. I've got a laptop now, but it only allows me to record up to 30 minutes. So this should go beyond 30 minutes. Now, I was pretty close to the end, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I am recording this the second time, and the first time I flowed right through the whole questioning the validity of the sheriff's expert testimony. I guess that's just how it goes. Back to the story. The verdict was overturned yet again, and a new trial was ordered. Williams would stand trial for the murder of his lover a third time. In 1987, the processing of the police's evidence came into question during the third trial. The jury deliberated tirelessly but was unable to come to a unanimous conclusion. The result was a hung jury, and a mistrial was declared, resulting in yet another trial. The fourth and final trial took place in 1989, 8 years after the shooting death of Hansford. Being tried 4 times for the same crime was a new record for the Georgian criminal justice system. That's a heck of a record to have. This time the trial would take place in Augusta instead of Savannah. The location change proved to be very lucky for Williams. The jury acquitted him after a short deliberation, and he left the courthouse a free man. He returned to the Mercer Williams house, the scene of his crime. After his death, Hansford was buried in Greenwich Cemetery. Greenwich Village was where the house of death was. He was buried in Greenwich Cemetery. His mother would later be laid to rest alongside him over 2 decades later. Good night. Keep stumbling over everything. Excuse me. After his death, Hansford was buried in Greenwich Cemetery. His mother would later be laid to rest alongside him over 2 decades later. His soul, though, remained restless as Williams remained free. Williams died less than a year later on January 14th, 1990. Doug Selly, an employee of Williams, found him in his study, unresponsive, mere feet from where Hansford was murdered. Some believe Hansford got his revenge in death. A book, and later a movie, titled Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, was made to recount this tumultuous time. From my understanding, a very good movie and book, so you might want to check that out. Another thing to note, aside from the Williams-Hansford ordeal, John F. Kennedy's widow, Jackie Onassis, visited the place in the 1980s. As for hauntings, staff that works at the house turned museum have stated seeing a full-body apparition of Jim Williams walking around, almost like he's admiring his restoration project. I got to tell you, that's exactly what I would do if I restored houses and I died. I would find the one that was my favorite, and I'd just hang out there. You know, just reinforcing my dead ego. Yeah, I restored this. I'm the man. Tommy Downs, the young boy mentioned earlier who fell off the roof and onto the spikes of the fence, has also been seen wandering the place. When I first read the Tommy Downs part, it made me think of one of the things around Halloween time that Anna and I have liked to do for the last few years is a company called Supermassive Games has started making the Dark Pictures anthologies. Excuse me. And in the second game that they put out, at the opening, more or less opening segment of the game, which it was based around, it was called Little Hope, and it was based kind of like, almost like its own version of the Salem Witch Trials, but I don't think it was actually in Salem. I think they were considering Little Hope somewhere else, like maybe Pennsylvania or something. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But in the opening scenes, one of the people is actually on the roof of their house trying to get out from a house fire, and falls off of the roof and lands on a spiked iron fence. So I immediately thought of that when I read that. Other ghostly activities reported include disembodied voices, large heavy footsteps, and doors slamming shut on their own. Neighbors of the property have also said that music can be occasionally heard in the house. Former owner Jim Williams was known to have thrown lavish, wild parties while staying at the historic property. You can read more on the Mercer Williams house at thehauntedplaces.com, usghostadventures.com, and savannahterrors.com. Let me know what you think of these stories you've heard on the Mercer Williams place. And, yeah, very interesting little read there. Our third destination in Savannah brings us to 200 Abercorn Street, site of the Colonial Park Cemetery. The oldest cemetery in Savannah, a place of desecrated graves, misplaced bodies, and shrouded in hoodoo mystery, in the history of hoodoo ceremonies. Good Lord, I couldn't get that out. Flowed right through that the first time too. Just ran right on through it. Now I can't say anything. The cemetery was established in 1750 when Savannah was the capital of Georgia. I want to read that again. The cemetery was established in 1750 when Savannah was the capital of Georgia. It was Savannah's primary public cemetery throughout its 103 active years. Its previous names have included the Old Cemetery, Old Brick Graveyard, South Broad Street Cemetery, and Christ Church Cemetery. It was originally built as the burial ground for the Christ Church Parish, hence the name Christ Church Cemetery. In 1789, it became a cemetery for all Savannians of all denominations. The cemetery was closed to burials in 1853. After Union troops occupied Savannah on December 24th of 1864, the graveyard became a temporary home to several hundred Union soldiers. Soldiers allegedly damaged or defaced some of the stone markers, including altering some of the dates and ages, and they took shelter inside the vaults. So Civil War is going on, I guess, and once the Union occupied Savannah, they didn't want to freeze to death out on Christmas Eve, hanging out, so they took shelter in those in the vaults, like where the tomb kind of things are, and I guess just started changing names and dates on the different plaques or whatever, those the name plates. Yeah, because that makes sense. I mean, I get it was Civil War, but everybody was an American regardless. Aside from numerous governors, military officers, and Sea Captain William Scarborough, more than 700 victims of Savannah's 1820 yellow fever epidemic are also buried there. Those who died from yellow fever are said to be behind the many sights and sounds seen and heard in the cemetery. Another spirit said to roam the grounds is that of Renee Rondelier. I'm going to read you the story of Renee, courtesy of the website nightlyspirits.com. And you can go there and read more on the cemetery and Renee. But, I'm going to give you a little rundown here. Renee Rondelier was one of Savannah's most infamous and troubled residents. Born in 1777, he was said to be a behemoth of a man covered in a layer of fur. His presence and off-putting behavior troubled the residents of the city. Rondelier was terribly troubled and lived next door to the cemetery. He would torture and kill neighbors, pets, and wild animals. Neighbors' pets, not neighbors' pets and wild animals. Actually, that's probably more accurate. It is said that his immense strength was completely out of his control. His intimidating size made residents uneasy about trying to stop his violent behavior. Legend has it that a wall was built to keep Rondelier inside his home. He, however, managed to escape due to his strength and size. No wall was big enough to control Rondelier's deep evil spirit. Eventually, Rondelier took to torturing humans. That's why I said earlier, maybe neighbors, pets, and wild animals was more fitting than neighbors, pets, and wild animals. He found that his large hands were perfect for snapping the necks of small girls. He reportedly would kill them and take their bodies to the system of tunnels that ran beneath the Colonial Park Cemetery. I wonder if those are actually connected to the ones that where the pirates would kidnap people and take them through the tunnels to end up on, someone waking up on their ship as an indentured servant. So I wonder if that's all kind of connected. One day, residents found two girls with their necks mangled outside the cemetery. Rondelier failed to cover his tracks, and his large footprints were found near the bodies. It was clear to residents that the giant killer was responsible for ruthless killings. A lynch mob found and captured Rondelier and took him to the swamp to be hanged. They decided that only death would stop him from taking any more lives. They left him for dead, dangling from a noose. Mysteriously, more victims were found near the cemetery after Rondelier's execution. Was his evil powerful enough that it allowed him to still take innocent lives even after death? Or did his strength allow him to free himself from the noose so he can continue the pattern of torturing and killing his victims? Another thing they don't note in that story, they say, was his evil power enough that it allowed him to take lives in death? Did his strength allow him to free himself? One thing they don't mention, was it really him doing it? There were more bodies turning up after he was hanged. Now, it's also likely that he could have freed himself, but maybe he didn't do it. They said his presence was off-putting. And generally throughout history, people with off-putting presences or looks or whatnot are not really, if it's bad enough, they're not even treated like human. I don't know how it was, it could have been one or the other, but who knows? Who knows whether or not the people that hung him, whether or not they were just looking for a reason, Some have said that they've seen Rondelier still hanging about his favorite murder scene at the Colonial Park Cemetery. It's been said that his gigantic silhouette has been spotted wandering the grounds. A walk through his infamous killing grounds can give you the chance to spot the imposing spirit. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if my information didn't transfer over right. Another thing that was mentioned is that there were a lot of duels that took place in the cemetery. If anyone, I'm talking draw, draw. Numerous duels over time took place there. A lot of death took place. Numerous people that were killed during duels are buried there. So yeah, couple that, and the thing that sucks about this is it seems like my information didn't transfer over properly, so that part of my notes, that's gone. I don't know where it went, but it up and disappeared on me, so I don't really have that information, but I don't know. But with the high number of deaths that took place from the duels and the victims of yellow fever, it is no wonder that this place does have a spooky past. Aside from spectral sights and sounds, a green mist has also been seen floating over the headstones. So let me know what you think about the hauntings of the Colonial Park Cemetery, and perhaps we should have a fan day in Savannah sometime. Have our own little ghost tour, something like that. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. About maybe all of us going down to Savannah for a weekend. And by all of us, I mean whoever's listening, and me and my family. Something could be fun. So thank you for listening to these stories of Savannah. One thing about Savannah I do want to mention, and that if I do not, I will get yelled at next week. There are tons of bodies buried underneath Savannah, and not just specific to the graveyards and cemeteries, but like in the streets and stuff too, apparently. I've never been to Savannah. I'm trying to remember how Bree described it, but it was something like, you could see, like whenever you see a grave, how it's disturbed land, you can kind of see that on the. It seems like she said on the streets and sidewalks where everything got covered. I don't know. I'm thinking about having her on for an episode and just telling her stories of what she saw in Savannah. We'll see. So moving forward, I do want to mention, if you want to go follow us on Facebook, you can just find it Full Moon Empty Road. You can follow me on TikTok, also Full Moon Empty Road. If you want to suggest an episode aside from just, approaching me and say, hey, do this, you can shoot me a message on Facebook. You can send me a message on TikTok. You can drop me a line at fullmoonemptyroad@gmail.com. And, not hard to find, as I usually say. Listener support is on, so if you want to, go buy me something to drink, buy me, or just support the channel. I'm not even going to go into it like that. Just, if you want to support the channel, by all means. Or if you want to buy me a coffee or an energy drink, you can do that, One last thing. Not one last thing. Also, tell your friends about the podcast. Let them know I'd love to have them along for the ride. I've got a couple new listeners this week. So, happy for that. I actually What the crap was that? I actually noticed on my demographic reach this week that I reached somebody in Saudi Arabia. So, I'm in America, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. If my Brazilian and Saudi Arabian listeners are listening to this episode, thank you so much. And you are more than welcome to get this out to your friends and get me an even wider reach. One last thing. And this was kind of the surprise I was talking about on Facebook. I now have a sort of unofficial sponsor. Tiffany at the Vinyl and Sublime Company can do all things from decals, shirts, tumblers, mugs, and much, much more. She has taken the reins on creating the first Full Moon Empty Road t-shirt. You can find her on Etsy at the Vinyl and Sublime Co. That's TheVinylAndSub as in Bravo, LIM as in Mike, EC as in Charlie, O. The Vinyl and Sublime Co. She even does custom orders. To request a custom order, you can email, text, or use the request a custom order at her Etsy shop. Drop her a line at the Vinyl and did it not take it? I'm going to actually have to go back for the email because I think I accidentally separated it. The email is either going to be vinylandsublimeco@gmail.com or thevinylandsublimeco@gmail.com. For any of you that are listening that are following me on Facebook, I'll post something about it there. Or you can shoot her a text at 706-913-7837 to get started on your custom order today. She's also working on a discount code for all of my friends to receive orders, for all of my fans and friends to receive orders at a discounted rate. So go now and tell her I sent you. Now, let's go home.